webinar for November and introduce you to Rose Young, who will be talking about supporting students who are doing parenting activities. And Rose, take it away.
All right, thank you. And thank you guys for supporting me in presenting my research today. I'm super excited. If you want to go ahead. So this research was originally published as an article in the Physics Teacher. It's in the September 2020 issue, the September 2020 volume 58, issue 6. And then there's a QR code that will take you to the AAPT website with information about that article. Go ahead. A little bit about me. My name is Rose Young. I currently work for NavAir at NOC at the Naval Air Station Patuxent River in Patuxent River, Maryland. And I also am a recent graduate of St. Mary's College of Maryland. I graduated in 2020. And then I have a child. His name's Devin, and he is 8 years old. Go ahead. So a little bit about my undergrad experience. I had a non-traditional undergrad experience because my son was a toddler during most of my college career. And so I had a great experience. However, in the physics department, I majored in physics and math and then minored in education. And at St. Mary's, they have an amazing faculty, and they supported students having children as well by allowing excused absences. They let Devin come with me to common areas and even allowed him in class if there was an emergency with childcare. And they also encouraged me to participate in research and conference opportunities, giving me those opportunities to apply for and then using them as references when I was interviewing for those as well. And all of this, because I had such a great experience in college, it made me wonder what the typical experience for other parents who are studying in STEM fields was. Go ahead. So the purpose of my research was to provide physics parents with strategies that other students have used and provide ideas for universities and physics faculty to support physics students who are raising children. Today, during my webinar, I will be going through the background of my research, going through the method of my experimental design, the findings, as well as the recommendations that I published in that AAPT article, and then we can end with a discussion and time for questions. Into the background. Why do we need to study this? There was a lack of prior research on this topic. When I set out to study this question, there were no articles that considered parents that were studying undergraduate or graduate physics in any sort of program. And I figured that it was a good idea to identify obstacles and any lack of support that may be driving parents away from studying physics or STEM-related fields. As well as their majoring in STEM, there's an extra burden for women who are also parents. And then the benefits of supporting parents that are studying physics include increasing the pool of highly trained STEM workers, diversifying the STEM field, and helping parents prepare for careers that they can use to support their families. Some relevant research. I did a research study of parents in college as well as women in the workforce and put those together to try and create some background research going into my experiment. So parents make up 22% of students. 70% of these students that are parents are also women, and roughly 6% of women and 11% of men in undergraduate physics could be raising children. This would be following the assumption that physics majors are parents in the same proportion as other college majors are parents. Some of the challenges I found during my research for parents as a whole in college: classmates perceive working moms negatively compared to moms who are not working. Less than half of four-year public colleges have childcare on campus, that figure was only 44% in 2015. And parents need to pay for both childcare, family housing, transportation already, in addition to the high tuition and other typical education related costs. So they have an extra cost. And then my research in women in STEM fields in the workforce. Women are underrepresented in physics. In 2017, 58% of bachelor's degrees were women, and 21% of physics degrees were awarded to women. Mothers deal with both underrepresentation at the same time as the challenges of dealing with parenting. And women report hostile supervisors, sexual harassment, and feeling undervalued in group work or laboratory settings. In addition, actions that professors take to support women in the classroom may backfire on students who are also parents. An example of this is that group work has been shown to help women succeed in their studies, but it's hard for parents when this group work is expected outside of class times, which may be outside of regular childcare times, and it also may be at locations, aka bars, or on campus where their children are not welcome to sit along with them. Women in the workplace, it's shown that mothers' careers progress slower than fathers. This could be due to the responsibility to taking care of a family. An example would be taking time off of work to care for sick children or having limited travel availability. There are existing companies that have frameworks for supporting women in the workplace, offering the option to work from home occasionally, on-site childcare, and maternity leave that is beyond the legal requirement. And in a study of Allstate insurance employees, on-site childcare and telework plans led to 96% of employees to report a better work-life balance, as well as feeling valued by the company. So those are proven. The method of my experiment, I had a qualitative study that I started by using snowball sampling to identify research participants. I did this by finding one parent who was studying physics and then asking them if they had any friends or anyone that they knew of. My professors were able to reach out. They were able to reach out to past students as well as other professors who had gone through graduate programs while they were parents. And so one interview led to making contact with another person, led to making contact with another person. And that's how I gathered my participant pool. I conducted the interviews at conferences or at other times where the participants were available around my school schedule and around their working schedule. And then I used in vivo to code for identifying patterns in the data set after transcribing their interviews. So my participant profiles, I had 8 participants in this study. They ranged in age from 20 to 50 years old at the time of the interviews. Half of them, so 4 of them, were traditional age students. They went to college after high school, and they studied physics between the age of 18 and 24. And then half of them were non-traditional students. They went back to school after having their children or after being a part of the workforce. 3 of the participants studied undergraduate math, 4 of them studied undergraduate physics, and 5 of them studied graduate physics. And then of the participants, 5 of them had one child while they were studying physics in undergraduate or graduate programs, and 3 of them had 3 or more children, one of them having at most 5 children while she was doing her graduate experience. 6 of the parents in this study were single, unmarried students, and 2 of the parents had spouses. And then finally, I had one male participant. Using the research that I've already presented, we might think that fathers face fewer obstacles than mothers when they're studying for physics degrees. However, after interviewing him and hearing his experiences, I chose to include him because his experiences were consistent with those of the women that I had interviewed. So going into my findings, my first finding were the obstacles that were faced by parents, including struggles with childcare, difficulties balancing employment, parenting, and school at the same time, and then struggles affording college. Just to read some of the anecdotes, I will read one of the biggest problems was just how to juggle my schedule with their schedule. Getting reliable childcare was definitely an issue because I didn't have means to just send them to full-time daycare. Here and there, I could get a babysitter, and then sometimes I was just bringing them to class with me, which wasn't ideal. And this was a common theme that I found. So again, finding reliable and affordable childcare was mentioned by all 8 of the participants. Another different view of that is this quote by Pluto, who studied physics. We built a village in my family dorms where one student would watch all of the kids one day, and then we would all switch between the 4 of us. There were also some football players who would babysit or do laundry if we cooked them a meal and fed them. And so this was a point where she was trading meals that she cooked for childcare so that she could get homework done or go to a night class. And they had to all work together, and she was not alone in being a mother studying in college. And then the next theme was time management and having time to do their homework while childcare was available. So it was not difficult to do projects outside of class because my project partners generally understood that I was a father. And it's really hard having the time constraints on when I could study before a test because a lot of my friends can study for 4 hours straight the night before, and that isn't possible for me. This theme of time management, as well as finding time to do homework, was mentioned by 7 of the 8 participants. Financial aid is the final topic that I found in this section, making it publicized, available, and simple to apply for. Trying to find scholarship opportunities if you're not coming straight from high school seemed like an exercise in futility. As a result, I took out many alternative loans to not only pay for tuition, but help support my family. That was by Sarah, and it was mentioned by 6 of the 8. And it's notable to mention that the 6 of the 8 did not correspond to the single parents versus the parents who had spouses while they were studying. Our second themes are the useful actions of departments reported by my participants, including offering access to professors and facilities outside of class times, opportunities for research and undergraduate and graduate programs, and valuing what parents can bring to physics as a field. First, providing access to professors and facilities outside of class time was key so that people could stay on track and also get help during their studies. Physics is a very difficult thing to study, and without the help of your professors and to be able to get into the labs outside of class time, you often can't complete all of your classwork or your homework. So one of the quotes from this theme is, I requested a key to the physics building to work in the labs after the door was locked. The professor told me I didn't really need the key and I could work it out with the other students who had a key. That student was male and he didn't have any children, so the time he worked in the labs were not times I could. This made me feel like I did not belong as part of this department or as part of physics. This theme was mentioned by 4 of them, and luckily I had the opposite experience where I was given lab access outside of class times, but I was only one of the 4 that had mentioned providing access to facilities outside of class time. Next would be providing professional opportunities like internships or research. This went both in the positive direction and the negative direction. So, always providing the professional opportunities is a great thing, but making them mandatory was hurtful for some people who were studying physics. An example of this, of it being in a positive way, is Carolyn, who said, "My professors have both gone out of their way to pull me aside and tell me about different programs and opportunities." This also aligned with my experience at St. Mary's. I had several professors who not only told me about research opportunities, but went ahead to sponsor my research and take me under their wing so that I could complete research both in the United States as well as in the United Kingdom for this project. But on the flip side, we have this quote, "There's so much buzz about getting REU programs going so that undergraduates can get research experience, but when I looked into REUs, those sort of programs were completely impractical for a single mother because they discourage participation in your home institution. What would I do with my kids for 8 to 10 weeks? They aren't set up for family style lodging or childcare." And that was one of the things, as well as another theme, was that a lot of internship opportunities are not paid, and parents can't afford to go to those internship opportunities while paying for childcare and not being paid for those opportunities. And this theme was mentioned by 5 of the 8 participants. And then another theme was that faculty valued the parents, including valuing the skills of parents that can contribute to classroom success, recruiting parents, understanding that there are times where emergencies happen and there will be missed classes, as well as employing and encouraging faculty with families. So to start, here's a quote. "I had never met faculty who valued being a mother as much as they did. I thought, that's the kind of mentor I want to be. The professors recognize that you are gaining skills as a mother that you can bring into school, and learning in school makes you a better mother." And this theme was mentioned by 6 people out of the participants. Another valuing parents quote, "My daughter would sit there and take notes while we were all taking notes, and then at the end, they would hand in their papers as if it was a quiz or something. And my thermodynamics professor would actually grade it and write, 'Oh, 100%, you guys did so well.'" That was from Sarah. And then this picture is actually of my son, Devin, coming to class with me in a math class during undergraduate. And you can see he has his chicken nuggets and his juice box and his coloring pencils. So I always brought him prepared with activities to do, but to have engagement from your professor that helps all of the other students and helps the child feel like they belong so that they can get through the class is really, really important. I also found guidance for other parents who are studying in STEM fields. Some of the guidance that I coded was to attend a university or college near an existing support system and not to forget about the importance of self-care. So, on the theme of attending schools locally so that a spouse, family member is available to support you, here's a quote. "I had my family, my other sister Sarah would keep her sometimes. My entire family is in the city where I studied." That's from Mary. So she had a lot of support from her family and stayed local. And then I have a lot of support from my mom. I chose to go to our local school instead of some big college to be close to home. She watches him all the time if I need to school or do homework, need to go to school or do homework. And this theme of having people, not necessarily family members, but also that village that created a network of other parents that were studying in their undergraduate program, that theme was mentioned by 7 of the 8 participants. And then finally, practicing self-care and taking a break from studying. So remember to take care of yourself. The most important thing is to be able to step back and put things into perspective. Sometimes you are having an off day or month and you may not be doing your best work, but relax and take care of yourself so you can do better next month. And then when you're prioritizing someone else's health, it's easy to forget about your own health, whether that was exercising or eating right or just decompressing and recharging. This theme was mentioned by 4 of the participants, and when asked, and they were prompted to go into the self-care aspects when asked about what advice they would give to another student who was a physics student while also being a parent. Some of the limitations of my study, I had a very small sample size of physics and math undergraduates who were also parents to pull from. I had 8 participants, and then I had 2 other participants who we just couldn't make the scheduling work, and they dropped out of the study. Um, as well as the perspective, I lost the perspective of any undergraduate students who chose to leave the STEM field or their undergraduate program, which is a very important limitation to discuss because all of these support systems and these themes were taken from people who did finish their physics degree. And I would love to have heard from people who maybe had a more negative experience and find out what was their final straw, what was their reason for leaving the field of physics. So then at the end, I have my recommendations. I split these into 3 different sections: recommendations for professors and faculty, recommendations for universities, as well as recommendations for the students themselves. So to start off, my recommendations to professors and faculty: professors and departments can make their program more suitable for parents studying STEM by creating opportunities to speak with the professor after class, publicizing research opportunities, employing a diverse faculty, including those with families, and having child-friendly casual spaces for studying or meeting, such as a contained space with whiteboards. And then also, if you want to go to the next slide, making personal connections with students. You'll see these 2 pictures that I had found on the internet from articles about professors holding their students' children during classes. If they had brought a baby into class and they were trying to take notes, the professors had the personal connection with their students to feel comfortable in just taking the baby off of their students' hands and putting them at the front of the class and really encouraging bringing your child to class and being successful in your physics career. My recommendations for universities and departments included offering child-friendly housing options and spaces such as a playground or an enclosed space for children to play on campus, having casual dining options and casual lounging options around that can be loud and noisy, and that there's not breakable or very fancy things in. And then having a strong financial aid office or program that offers workshops and information about available scholarships and the application process. And then finally, my recommendations to other STEM students who are parents: attend a school in a community where you have a support network. That doesn't mean that you need to attend a school that's already in your community and like stay close to home. That can be helpful, but also having a support network when you get there, having friends on campus, or knowing that there are people nearby that could help is important. Getting to know your professors, going to office hours, and having open and honest conversations with them, especially when it comes to communicating missed classes or missed work that needs to be taken at a different pace because of the other responsibilities going on in their lives, as well as trying out different schedules or childcare arrangements to find the best balance of time with family and schoolwork. In conclusion, studying physics as a parent was challenging, but the degree is worth it. And the other participants in this study have gone on to be teachers, professors, and engineers, while their children have gone on to become artists, pharmacy technicians, engineers, teachers, and other things. And then just a final statement. These suggestions are compiled through the guidance of 8 students studying physics who are parents, and I hope to see other students and faculty take advantage of these suggestions because parents in STEM fields have so much to offer. Thank you. I need to say thank you to the National Science Foundation for supporting this research, as well as my St. Mary's College of Maryland physics and math departments and the faculty in them. I would also like to thank my mentor, Angela Johnson, her collaborator, April Hoderi, and my fellow research assistant, Elizabeth Mulvey, as well as all of you for joining my presentation today. And then now we have time for questions, as well as there's a QR code to download the paper that I submitted to the physics teacher.
And I am going to stop sharing screen so I can see a little better, but thank you so much for that. If you have questions, please use the Q&A, but because I don't see any right now, I think I'll start off with, I really appreciate this and thought about how this applies to so many different things with flexibility in particular. What kinds of strategies do you suggest for people, if they're students, that is, to get this information to faculty, how to have these conversations? Because I think some faculty are not aware of all the things you've mentioned.
Yeah, well, taking my article straight to faculty would be a great suggestion because it has some of the data that I have, as well as the clear-cut recommendations that go from some of the more intense recommendations would be starting a childcare on campus, but there are other recommendations that are as easy as putting swipe access on lab doors so that or having like a shared key that is available to students who are also studying as well as being parents.
Yeah, that makes sense because again, I'm thinking this is focused on student parents, but I'm just thinking so many other people, the schedule doesn't work out for a lot of reasons. So I think that makes perfect sense to me, and it would be very simple to do in theory. That is, who knows? There's other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
What other things? And can if anyone wants to use the Q&A, I was trying to write notes while I was just advancing the slides, so I'm just have to look over what I actually wrote down because there were things I was curious about. What are the, were there any, you said some of the people were graduate students in your sample. Were there any differences between the graduate types of support that grad students needed versus undergrads?
There weren't a difference in the supports that they needed, but there was a difference in the support that was made available to them. I think everybody had the same needs of we need money, we need time, and um, we need help studying from faculty and from other students. But in grad programs, it was much easier for people to afford college while they were either working or getting a grad stipend. And then also graduate students were more likely to be of the like older returning to college stage of their life, and so they had other supports set up from family members or just having more experience parenting and juggling the parenting work school balance. And it seemed like graduate students also had more access to facilities because they were conducting research on their own, and the grad programs usually had a more self-paced um, self self-paced research journey as well as more research opportunities.
That makes sense. A lot of grads programs, once you get past your courses, you're sort of working like a job in the lab.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
our first question is somebody wants to know about how did you go about proposing funding this research?
I actually was part of a study by April Hoderi and Angela Johnson that investigated women in STEM. And so I did undergraduate research with them for the first 2 years. And then when it came time to do my own undergraduate project for my senior capstone, they asked me what I would be interested in studying. And so I took a section of their project and created a publishable article about specifically parenting in physics. And it tied a lot into the study of women in physics, and specifically women of color in STEM fields, which is what their project was funded for.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, if it's familiar with that work, it's quite good. What else was I going to ask? Yeah, I'm just thinking about the financial aspect of this too, because that was something you brought up. That it's hard enough to survive as one person paying for yourself, but then if you have to pay for at least one other person, even if they're tiny.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
they're expensive.
yeah, they are. Yeah, but what kinds of other suggestions might you have for that? Because when you're talking about RUs and things not being inaccessible because of the location stuff and not having housing for children and whatnot, I'm just thinking, and they pay okay, but not great.
Yeah.
What did
Yeah.
you see any creative solutions people have to overcome the financial barrier? Because a lot, and also sometimes I know money gets earmarked differently, so you can't use it for different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so some of the students had internships that gave some sort of
Mhm.
stipend or tuition reimbursement for their work during their summer internships. And so that, I think, was the most effective path of affording college while also having to work, and also having all of these expenses on top of it of a child. Another thing that people did was having a part-time job, but those were the hardest experiences I heard. Were people who had part-time jobs as well as trying to go to school as well as trying to do research, because part-time jobs you also have to have childcare for, and so you're financing childcare as well as all for childcare for that extra job, as well as all of the other things that are required for the degree. But scholarships, as well as finding internship programs that have some sort of tuition reimbursement program along with them. Um, there's also usually jobs on campus that you could do while you're waiting for classes. And a lot of those jobs who cater to college students will let you bring out a book and read a book for class, or sneak away and get something done with your professor real quick. And so having an on-campus job where you have the opportunities to talk to professors and other students, versus having an off-campus job where you have to drive out there and then you're losing some of that time and that opportunity as well. So having an on-campus job.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because that's going off campus. You never know what's going to happen with traffic and everything else. And I was thinking about, again, because I am very much interested in the research stuff. And I was also talking to folks earlier about the importance of gaining research skills during your education. Are there ways that faculty can make research more accessible for students, particularly undergraduate student parents, to participate? Because like when you were talking, I was thinking about my friends who used to do these, they were chemists in undergrad and they would have to these long experiments. And if you screw up once, you have to start over. And thinking about what sorts of other types of lab work that we do for research, are there certain ways faculty should talk to students about what like the time commitments that they actually have to be there? Are there ways that you think they could design their research differently so that students don't have to spend like all day and night in a lab? Or
Yeah. One of the most successful things that I experienced at St. Mary's was all of the undergraduate research opportunities were for more than one person. And so if I wasn't able to do it because of a child commitment, or if anybody else wasn't able to do it, we could all switch off. And so we were all kind of cycling together. And that included different hours. And so when we went to the UK for our undergraduate research project, I was able to switch off with other people and put in more hours. And I was able to finance my mom and my son to come to the UK as well, just by putting in more hours doing research. Um, and so I could go for that week because I wasn't comfortable just leaving them stateside. And so I could go with them. And that was one of the things that having more than one person who is responsible to help the professor, um, we were able to work out our work schedules and help each other.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially because there's so many different factors that means you can't maybe meet the time that you'd like to be in the lab doing stuff.
Yeah.
I have a question too, because of working with other people is, a good thing. It also can be very challenging. What ways can faculty or instructors help foster a culture that, this kind of stuff is just what we do, right? Like we are considerate of other people's schedules, particularly if they have, in this case, childcare needs or responsibilities.
Yeah, I think that's the toughest question, because it affects parents, it affects other students,
Mhm.
it affects anybody studying physics or any degree. Is trying to promote and encourage student peer connections, promote working together outside of class for projects, labs, papers, all of those kind of things. I'm not sure that I have a good response, a good piece of advice for faculty. I think one of the things that I've heard before is to have a clear expectation of work outside of class, and to allow students to pick their own work groups, their own study groups. And I've heard of faculty who, and St. Mary's did this, at the beginning of class, they make it a point to have 2 or 3 minutes where they ask you to exchange information with the people who are sitting next to you, so that you have at least one or two people's contact information if you need help. The other thing that they did at St. Mary's that I can speak to is they had office hours that became um, more like study hours. So
Mm.
it was common for everyone in the class to come. It wasn't a mandatory class time, but they would go over quiz answers, they would go over homework answers. Actually, in one of my math classes, if you went to the TA time or the office hours, there were always a lot of people there, and they would give you for free the answer and the solution to one of the questions, so that it was like an incentive for everybody to go and to be together at that time outside of class.
That makes sense, and I'm sure that help makes people, feel connected, know each other, be more flexible when you learn about other people's realities in life, because it's hard, because it's not usually obvious what other people have going
Yeah.
on outside.
And everybody has things going on outside. It can
Absolutely.
be your family members, it can be your child, it could be your work schedule. Everybody has difficulties.
Absolutely. And I don't see any other questions, so I will ask one final question then. What kinds of things could we people do right now? I mean, you said some basic stuff at the beginning about giving access. Are there other things that you feel like would be really important to do right now to support student parents, for departments in particular?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen work really well, especially in COVID, was having online resources and having self paced resources, because so many people struggled with being sick or having family members who were sick, or just needing to take some time off from studying for our mental health in quarantine. But having web based class resources like online pre recorded lectures, or having work that can be graded, like homework that's graded online while you're doing it to give you options. There's so many school options that came out during COVID that are online based and are easy enough to pull up while you have a screaming toddler running around, or while you're juggling things, logging on at 10:30, 11 at night after the kids have gone to bed. So, yep, having online programs and making sure that the students are aware of those programs.
Uh, And I think that's it for now. I might stay on for a few extra minutes, but thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you, Rose, for giving this talk. I think this was fantastic and I learned a lot. And I'm going to stop the webinar.
Great.